And we are live. Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. It is Thursday, July 29th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks, and we've got a nice DraftKings version, at least 6-game slate for you today. We're going to break it all down, take you all the way up to that 12:05 lock. But first, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow Adam and I on Twitter at Josh Engleman, at ShipMyMoneyDFS. Adam, how are you?
Pretty good. I really enjoy split slates, so pretty excited for today. A little bummed out. I have an eye doctor's appointment right after the show, so I can't play as much volume as I normally would on the early slate, but still nice to have afternoon baseball, so looking forward to that.
You and me both. I prefer the day slates. It gives me something to do. I wonder why the NBA doesn't ever experiment with like a day game or like day games during the week. Is there a reason for that, you think?
I don't know. I mean, my answer would just be ratings, but that's the same for baseball.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, there's also no benefit to like daytime basketball. Like daytime baseball is awesome. Like you're playing outside typically. It's just different.
Yeah, but we're talking about a different product for what? The 10,000 people that attend it live in comparison
No, but
to
even watching it, like it's, I don't know, watching day baseball is just, I think, different than watching daytime basketball. Like it's still, I don't know. I'm not saying like I wish there wasn't, or I'm glad there isn't daytime basketball, but I think it's just, I don't know, like afternoon games is like part of baseball.
Oh yeah, sure. Like I like the appeal. It's more intriguing for baseball. I'm just curious, like it really just does not exist in other forms. It's kind of weird. Or like even obviously day football makes sense. Like you're not going to have a Thursday at noon game unless it's Thanksgiving. They're not like, since it's a once a week sport, but NBA is frequent enough. Yeah, I mean, I got a ton to talk about.
I think it's really just like afternoon games are like tradition in baseball. There's no real reason to do it though. Like it's not going to boost your ratings. It's not going to make you more money. It's not going to do any of that. So like, I don't know. I don't think any other sport has the incentive to like switch to more afternoon games.
Well, the only reason that traditionally baseball games were played during the day is because we didn't have the electricity to power them at night.
Well, yeah, I know, but it is what it is. I mean, Wrigley didn't have lights until what, like 1988?
Yeah, it was super late. So, electricity being what it was. Anyway, it's not important. Let's talk about these games because we've got 6 to talk about, at least from the DraftKings perspective. FanDuel, a little bit more limited. We're going to go through game by game. We'll sum it all up, give some top stacks, give some top pitchers, maybe bounce around each position, give some of our faves for everybody, and then we should be somewhere near that 12 o'clock time. We can take a couple questions. Does that sound good to you, Adam?
Sure.
Let's start it off then with the Phillies and the Nats. Phillies, I mean, is there a line yet? There wasn't. I know now that it's officially Scherzer, but we didn't have a line before. I had a made-up line that the Nats were favored. 4.6 runs to 3.9 runs, but we'll fingers crossed here. It's going to be Scherzer and Wheeler in the first game, Corbin and Velasquez in the second game. How are you feeling about this pretty lethal matchup between Scherzer and Wheeler?
I mean, obviously I like both pitchers here. Wheeler was supposed to be the most expensive or the most popular pitcher on last night's slate, and for good reason. Now you have him at 10,200 going against the same Nats team. Still won't have Trey Turner. Juan Soto, Josh Bell, really the only dangerous bats in this lineup. So I think Wheeler looks really good. And then you get Scherzer at 10-4 in a decent matchup against Philadelphia as well. I don't really see any reason not to like either of these guys.
Do you have a preference here? Because they're not the only studs. We also have Gerrit Cole going, who was pulling a ton of ownership. I think maybe I have to just open this one up to you. Wheeler, Scherzer, Cole, do you have preferences?
In tournaments, I'll probably just lean towards whichever's the lowest owned. Right now, we don't have ownership on Scherzer yet, so I can't see that. But we have Gerrit Cole at 47%. We have Zach Wheeler at 27%. I think in cash, you probably are looking Cole, but I like that pivot in tournaments getting to Wheeler. He's just been so good this year.
Yeah, we got Scherzer at 10-4. We've got, trying to get everything all refreshed. We've got Cole at 10-7, Scherzer at 10-4, Wheeler at 10-2. So in the grand scheme of things, you're not really all that worried about salary. Those guys are all the same. It is going to open up some interesting spots to pay down for a second pitcher. Is there anything you don't like about getting to Wheeler or Scherzer? I assume the answer is just simply no.
No, I mean, they're both really good pitchers. Scherzer comes in with a 35% strikeout percentage. Wheeler's at 30%. 2.74 xFIP for Wheeler, 3.37 for Scherzer. There's not really much that concerns me here.
Adam, is my mic bad for you?
Yeah, I was going to say either my internet is bad or your mic sounds like shit.
I don't know what it could possibly be. Do I still sound like garbage?
No, you sound fine, though.
Okay, well, tip me off if it sounds like garbage again. And please don't tip me off immediately by saying that it's my voice. All right, let's talk a little bit. We'll start on the Phillies side. Any interest? Well, I guess you could start on either side you want. Any interest in the Phillies or the Nats, given the matchup?
Not really, because not only do you have the difficult matchup with both pitchers being really good, you also have the 7-inning game. So you have a shortened game on top of just a spot where you're unlikely to have success anyway. So I don't really have much interest. Scherzer's been more home run prone this year than Wheeler has. So if for whatever reason you're insisting on targeting against one of them, I think grabbing one-offs against Scherzer makes a little bit more sense, but just not really interested in either side.
Yeah, this one's tricky. I mean, getting all of this stuff set back up is really problematic, but we're going to be all right. Yeah, I don't have much of a lean here. I was getting to a little bit more Nationals earlier today when I thought that it was going to be Vince Velasquez. That changed a bit as of now. So let's just move forward. I don't have anything else to add for Phillies Nats.
Me neither. So I guess the one other thing to add is just keep in mind that the chances of either or both of these guys throwing a complete game increases because it's only 7 innings.
For some reason, I'm getting like a shockingly low projection on Wheeler right now, and I need to figure out what is breaking in my model.
The run total for the Nats is messed up.
Figured as much. Have you seen a line yet?
I'm seeing it at 8.5 total with the Nats minus 130.
Okay. Yeah, no, like it's still not.
But that still seems wrong.
It's not up at the site we're talking about, generally speaking. That much I can say. Which, I mean, everything's going to come down to that. So we might have to circle back a little bit if and when a line actually drops. Like if that total, I just saw one total that is set at 5.5.
That makes more sense to me than 8.5.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Well, when I originally got 8.5, it was Vince Velasquez.
Right. But like I'm still seeing 8.5, which.
Yeah. The first one I just saw was 5.5, but I mean, that makes sense given the setup of the game. 5.5 also feels like shockingly low, but
yeah,
I'm just so used to not having to play or not playing 9 innings instead of, or playing 7 innings. It feels like it should be
slightly higher than 5.5, but it sure as hell shouldn't be anywhere close to 8.5.
No. All right. So I'm going to flip this. Let me know what you think here. I'm seeing minus 140 Phillies, plus 130 Washington, 5.5 run implied total. So 3 runs for the Phillies, 2.5 for the Nats. That is pushing up Wheeler and Scherzer quite a bit in a different way and killing the bats. And I think that is about where we should be.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Actually, one follow-up question for this game, and I think it's important. Given that this is a 6-game slate now, we talked a little bit about playing the 7-inning game yesterday on an 11-gamer. How does that impact your decisions now? Because we've got Wheeler and Scherzer, 2 very high-end pitchers, a limited game, limited run total. Can you still get to the Phillies and or the Nats in a situation like this?
The hitters?
Yeah. Like, how much different is it now in this shorter slate than it was for you on a day like yesterday?
In this matchup, if this matchup were 9 innings, I still wouldn't really want to go to either team because both pitchers are so good. Now it just makes it even lower probability and even less appealing.
Okay, so there's not any additional interest for you from like a leverage perspective?
No.
Okay. I have the same sort of thought process, but I wanted to make sure. I'm sure some people would have a couple questions about it. Now, let's continue on to a legitimate 9-inning game. Mets and Braves, 4.5 run implied total for the Mets, 4 for the Braves. It's Taiwan Walker and Drew Smyly. Smyly getting a little bit of ownership on DK, 8%, 4% on FanDuel. Walker at 13% on DK, 9% on FanDuel. Do you have a preference between the two?
I mean, my preference is Taiwan Walker because I think he's better, but
Sure.
You're also getting a cheaper salary on Smiley. Keep in mind too, and this obviously isn't meant for you, it's meant for people watching, but the ownership that we're referencing right now is going to change because we don't have Max Scherzer in it. So it's still a proxy, but it's going to change between now and lock. But
I've
Smiley,
got Scherzer at 26% right now.
No, he's not in the top pitcher still.
Oh, they are in the actual ownership projections.
Okay. But yeah, anyway, Smiley's going to be low owned. I have some interest there. He does have okay strikeout stuff. He's not a very good pitcher. But for the season, he's struck out 20% of hitters. He has a 4.9 xFIP, which isn't good. He's allowed 1.7 home runs per 9. If you need to pay down a pitcher, it's fine at low ownership. But there's another pitcher who's not getting ownership and is cheap that I would much rather go. There's a couple that I would much rather go to.
Yeah, I'm with you. There are people. I've got two lower than him that I think are going to be pretty easy to get to.
Actually, I have three.
I have two very obvious ones, and then I personally have a third. They're all going to be the same. It's David Price, it's Luis Pitino, and Alec Mills, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, just checking. Yeah, you're going to be able to save. I think they're better options, and you're going to be able to save more salary for the Coles, the Scherzers, and the Wheelers of the world. Is this more of a game for bats for you?
Yeah, I think so. Looking at the top stack tool, we have the Mets getting ownership coming in at about 10%. Atlanta's coming in around 11%. Both teams with about an 8% chance of being the top stack. So they're going a little bit over-owned, but you also just have so much ownership coming in on the White Sox here and it being a smaller slate. I don't mind that much that you're getting a little bit too much ownership. We know Smiley gives up power. The Mets have plenty of it in their lineup. You have JD Davis at 4K, Pete Alonso at 5,700. The lefties for the Mets, I think it's important to note not to shy away from those guys. You'll often see people in lefty-lefty matchups, look for the right-handed bats, obviously, but then stay away from the left-handed bats. Drew Smiley's never been that good against lefties. This year so far, he's allowed a 270 expected ISO. His strikeout numbers are much higher against lefties. But when you're just talking in terms of power upside and tournament winning potential, don't shy away from Brandon Nimmo, Dom Smith, Michael Conforto here either.
I'm trying to figure this. It's a tricky game for me. I don't love the total. I expected it to be a little bit higher than it is. So it's really dampening my interest in both Atlanta and New York. And the fact that they are coming in as both over-owned, I think that's going to be a bit of an issue for me. Obviously, if you're looking at the top stack tool on the site for the early games, don't read in significantly to the Nats being the second top stack with no ownership. That leverage is just simply not going to be correct. There's 0% chance that they are the second best stack for the day on the early slate. That'll get corrected, I hope. Favorite bat from the Mets?
Peter Alonso, obviously.
Yeah, agreed. Picked him as my home run pick last night on Live Before Lock. Didn't happen, unfortunately. Favorite bat from the Braves?
I mean, it's always Freddie Freeman. The pricing on the Braves has come up a bit across the board. Albies is back to 4,500. Riley's up to 4,300. Taiwan Walker this year has been pretty good. He's actually allowed a bit more power to righties than lefties, and he's got a lower strikeout percentage against righties. That could be a result of his splitter maybe not being as effective to righties. Not really sure what the reasoning would be why he's been better, but I think Freeman's still the bat that I would look to first here.
Okay. Anything else for Mets and Braves?
No, just I do like the Mets side more than the Braves side, even though right now we have the Braves actually getting more ownership.
Okay. Schedule for the rest of the day. It's going to be a pretty good one. For reasons that I don't know. Oh, I'm on the wrong run sheet. That makes a lot more sense. Schedule for the rest of the day. Coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern time. MLB Deeper Dive. Adam will be back breaking down the main slate game by game with Eric. MLB Live Before Lock from 6 to 7. Greg and Terry breaking it all down all the way to lock. And then at 7:45 or somewhere in that neighborhood, myself and Laffy going live for the NBA draft. We're going to have a bunch of pop-ins. I know Ben's stopping by. I believe Greg's stopping by. I know Alex is coming in for the Pistons pick. It's going to be fun. Adam, are you popping in for the NBA draft show tonight?
What do you think?
Just as I suspected, Adam cannot wait to be there. Make sure you guys are showing up to watch Adam on the NBA draft show tonight, but we're going to go probably through the lottery, depending on how it's going. And we're just going to talk some NBA and shoot the proverbial shoot, since I don't want to swear in that situation. Also, free content. If you're playing MLB, the MLB Top Pitchers tool is free today. To game 3 we go. Yankees and Rays. Yankees, 3.8 run implied total. Rays, 3.7. It's Gerrit Cole pulling a ton of ownership. It's Luis Pitino pulling not nearly as much as I expected him to pull. Let's start with Cole, I guess, and then you can transition over to one of the better value options of the day.
Yeah, so Cole obviously looks great. He's got a 34% strikeout percentage this year, 2.88 xFIP. Had some concerns about the foreign substance crackdown, but we've seen some big starts from him since. Wasn't great in his last start against Boston, 3 runs in 6 innings. But prior to that, he gave up 1 run in 6 innings to Boston, put up 35 DraftKings points with 11 strikeouts. The start before that, he struck out 12 in a complete game against Houston, put up 50 DraftKings points. There's still a really high ceiling on Cole, and he's definitely one of the pitchers that, like, my expectation as far as the foreign substance stuff goes is that the really good pitchers, maybe they would drop off initially just because things are, it's something they have to adjust to, but they're still going to figure it out. Gerrit Cole still has really, really good stuff. He's still a really good pitcher. So I'm still really interested in Cole here. It's a good spot to pitch as well. Tropicana is favorable for pitchers. The only thing kind of working against Cole is that he is more expensive than Scherzer. He's more expensive than Wheeler. And I don't want to say his ceiling is lower, but he's less likely to get that complete game bonus because obviously he's just less likely to go 9 innings and those two are to go 7. So I'll be interested to see the top pitchers tool when it does update how his top 2 percentage compares to Scherzer. And right now we have it higher than Wheeler, and Cole's getting about double the ownership, but interested to see how it changes when Scherzer gets mixed in there as well. But either way, I do like Gerrit Cole.
Then let's dive into Luis Pitino. Talk him up, because this is going to be a nice value play today.
Yeah, I think it's a really risky spot, but I do like the salary for him. He's only 5,900. He's relatively stretched out, so as long as he's pitching well, I don't think it should be much of a concern about how deep he can go. He only went 5 1/3 last start, but he threw 98 pitches against Cleveland. July 2nd, he threw 94 pitches. He had, I believe, a start or 2 in the minors in between, but he is stretched out. You haven't seen great results so far for him in the majors, but he's one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, and he's just too cheap for his talent level. So I am still interested in going there, especially because right now he's getting 15% ownership, which, while it's higher than some other cheap pitchers that I also think are good, it's not like he's getting Andrew Heaney-esque ownership from last night or anything like that.
I have him coming in, refresh, basically similarly to David Price. I could flip a coin and go either direction. A little bit more risk, obviously, for Pitino. Do you have a preference between the two as pay down options?
Between Price and Pitino?
Yeah.
Whichever's lower owned. I think I would lean toward Price just because he's more proven, but I think that Pitino is still a pretty good option.
Okay. Well, now let's talk a little bit about these Yankees.
Actually, I take it back. I thought Price had gone a little bit deeper in his last start. So I would lean Pitino just because I think there's a chance that you get like 20 pitches more from him. All
right. Yankees bats. Obviously, this lineup is going to be looking a little bit better in the near future. Bonkers, by the way. Do we want to touch on that? Thoughts on Gallo to the Yanks?
Absolutely fantastic addition.
Yeah.
Also dreading it because it's going to be Giancarlo Stanton ×2 with just Yankees fans that still think like the goal is to bunt and slap the ball to the opposite field, losing their mind when Joey Gallo strikes out in 1/3 of his at-bats.
It's sort of like all these people that want to use Sims and DFS to try to make money.
Mike Francesca tweeted yesterday that right after the Joey Gallo trade, that it would be a mistake to take playing time away from Greg Allen. Or an arguably top 20 hitter in baseball.
That fits in this lineup like a glove.
And this park. I mean, he could just go absolutely nuts.
109 park factor for home runs in Yankee Stadium for lefties, FYI. And if you're one of those people that think you can pitch around guys, great luck finding that spot. Oh, yeah, you're going to pitch around Joey Gallo. Congratulations. One of Stanton or Judge is hitting behind him and is going to put one on the moon.
Yeah, I mean, you're like looking at the lineup today. You basically you take out Brett Gardner, you take out Greg Allen, and you replace and you take out Higashioka, and you're replacing those guys with Joey Gallo, Gary Sanchez, and Luke Voit once he gets back.
Yeah, God, it's just there are going to be some games in the regular season where it's just a home run derby. There are going to be some games where it's just, they should create power out of the wind that is just coming from all of the strikeouts, but I don't care at all about that. I'm ready to watch the moonshots. I hate that it's the Yankees, though. That's the only downside.
I hate that it's the Yankees. And again, I'm really not looking forward to having to read and listen to their fans. But other than that, great fit. Should be a lot of fun to watch.
Well, let's talk about them for today. I still think they look pretty good. You can make a case, at least for me. I think they might be slightly under-owned given the spot. Maybe that's just the Pitino ownership. Talk to me about the Yankees bats in this situation, because the total is not high.
Yeah, I like them in tournaments, though. If you just look at the Yankees in the top stack tool, they are projected to get a little bit more ownership than they deserve. But again, that's thrown off by still having Washington as the second highest top stack. But the thing that makes me like the Yankees is not only their chances of success and their ownership, but the fact that Pitino is going to get ownership. If he's going to come in around 15 to 20%, he's still a volatile pitcher. He hasn't had great success so far in the majors. He has an xFIP over 5 in his limited time with the Rays. He's allowed 1.3 home runs per 9. It's not like it's a slam dunk. This guy goes out there and pitches well. He can certainly get lit up by this Yankees team. So I like getting to the Yankees just because it's still a pretty good lineup, even though it's not their best lineup today. But also, I just like the leverage that you get by going up against Pitino, assuming Pitino is going to get ownership.
I'm more than happy getting here. I have them under-owned personally. The question is, do you get to any Rays bats? Because I loved them yesterday. Didn't work. I certainly don't like them today.
Yeah, I don't really see much of a reason today. I was on them yesterday. I ended up on them yesterday too. I didn't like the spot, but just once everything shook out, they ended up in some of my top lineups. But yeah, it's really hard to get them today. They're not cheap. The park doesn't favor them. Gerrit Cole's really, really good. There's not a ton of bad pitching on this slate, but there's enough other spots that I don't really see getting to Tampa. The exception would be if Cole does still pull like 40 to 50% ownership in larger field tournaments. I think some Tampa's okay, but it's still just such a low probability spot. I doubt that I would commit much to it.
Okay. Do you have a favorite Yankees bat?
Judge at 4,400.
Did you think Judge was on his way out yesterday?
No, because that would have made no sense, but the whole thing was still really weird.
Yeah. If I were a Yankees fan, I would not have been a happy camper thinking like, what is actually going on here right now?
Yeah, it was all really weird. And then it came out that like the Yankees had given up 4 to 6 players, and people were like, did they give up Judge plus like 5 prospects for Gallo?
Felt a little improbable at that point.
Yeah.
Anything else in this game?
No.
We're moving along pretty nicely. Time to go to everybody's favorite team as of late, White Sox and Royals. 5.4 run implied total for the White Sox, 4 for the Royals. Carlos Rodon, Carlos Hernandez, the two pitchers in this game. Rodon pulling 28% ownership on DK, 15 on FanDuel. No ownership going to Carlos Hernandez. Let's start with Rodon because obviously the top of pitching is loaded. Do you get to him at 9,700? Is he more appealing because he's the cheapest of the group? Where do you stand?
I think he's a good option. I just don't think he's quite as good as the other guys. And right now, so we got the update in the top pitchers tool. Gerrit Cole's still pulling 50+% ownership. He has the highest top 2 percentage, but then you have Scherzer and Rodon 30%, 25%, Wheeler coming in at 20. They're all projected to be owned between 22 and 28%. Rodon's kind of interesting there. I would expect that if I'm playing 150, I probably get around the field. He does have the highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 36%, 2.99 xFIP. Like he's been really, really good this year. It's just kind of hard to trust him ahead of guys like Scherzer and Cole that have a little bit longer track record of being this good.
Yeah, he showed up in my Sims. Sorry, I'm using Sims, everybody, at 20%. So right at the ownership number. I don't really have much of a take. I'm going to have him. It's fine by me. I assume Carlos Hernandez is not on your radar.
Absolutely not.
Okie doke. What do we do with the chalk White Sox bats? These guys are pulling ownership every single day. They're the highest top stack tool today by a mile. They're over-owned in theory, but very clearly the best option you can find.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you how it's going to go. I've been on the White Sox 3 days in a row. They've sucked all 3 days. Today, on the 6-game slate, they're getting tons of ownership, so I most likely will just go to other teams, and they most likely will hit like 18 home runs. But it's one of the best spots on the slate. Like, they deserve the ownership that they're getting, in the sense that if they were getting less, I would just go right back to the White Sox. But it just kind of comes back to you like taking a long view of a baseball season and just understanding how much volatility there is in baseball. It's really easy to look at a slate like this and say, like, how do the White Sox fail? They are in such a good spot, blah, blah, blah. There's so many other good pitchers on the slate. Carlos Hernandez is easily one of the worst, but it's still baseball, and you can't really pick and choose when, baseball is going to play out the way that it's supposed to on paper and when it's not. You kind of just have to put yourself in a position to win every tournament, that you're playing. So my assumption is that I'll just end up underweight on the White Sox today, even though I think it's a fantastic spot. I just think it's the easiest path to winning a tournament is to not have the 25% owned stack.
Have you seen Eloy Jimenez's ownership for today?
No, but I doubt he plays.
Okay. Do you want to guess what it is, just in case?
35.
47.
That's a lot.
And they just made a trade for Cesar Hernandez.
Oh, from the Indians?
Sure.
The second baseman.
I'll take your word for it. I assume so. Yeah. It just says his name, no qualifications. I bet that's a popular one in baseball circles.
Well, I hesitated for a second because the pitcher they're facing is C. Hernandez. And I was like, did they just trade for the opposing pitcher? And why?
That's some Billy Bean type stuff. Moneyball days. Cardo Rincon. Hey, buddy, come over from the other dugout with no ability to speak English.
The Mariners and Astros just did it with Toro.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a 6-game slate. Let's just say that our ownership is spot on for the White Sox, 25% ownership share. What is your general approach on a situation like this, where we're in agreement? They are the best stack. It's, to me, not really even close to being up for a debate. How do you manage that in tournaments when you know that 25% of the lineups are like, do you have a number in mind that you're sort of shooting for in terms of like adjusting your stacks for the White Sox?
No, I mean, I just kind of let whatever happens with the way I make my lineups. Like, I trust that more than I trust myself to adjust things. But typically what happens, like, a lot of times I don't even look at my exposures until after the slate starts. But typically what ends up happening in a spot like this is I'll end up getting to the White Sox as pieces that are mixed in with lower owned stacks. Like, if I were playing 150 lineups, let's say I had some Tampa stacks against Cole, I'd be mixing the White Sox in there because I think it's the best spot. And I think if Tampa goes off, I don't really want to be trying to get some other terrible offense to go off with Tampa. I want to just have really good lineups if Tampa goes off. So that's where, like, they would get mixed in with lineups like that. If I'm using just completely off the board pitching, like right now with the way we have pitching projected, and it's probably not necessary on the slate because the opportunity cost is so high, but just as like a general example, if I ended up with something like David Price plus Alec Mills pulling a combined 12% ownership at pitcher, I'm going to be less concerned with the ownership on my bats. But more often than not, I'll just end up underweight as a whole if the team's getting 20 to 25% ownership.
Okay. I know people will probably look at that pretty regularly, so I wanted to make sure that we touched on it a little bit. What's the value in Royals bats for today? I would say that they're probably slightly under-owned, if just based on everything that I have, but I also do have them as the number 8 stack on DraftKings. Do you like getting to the Royals here? 25% ownership to Rodon makes it seem plausible.
Yeah, I think it's an okay spot to leverage. It's kind of weird because, again, like Carlos Rodon's been as good as anyone this season, but I just feel a little bit better going up against him than I do going up against someone like Gerrit Cole. And then you also run the issue with Scherzer and Wheeler of that game only being 7 innings. So I think if I were going to target one of the popular top end pitchers, Carlos Rodon would probably be the first one that I go to. Kansas City does have power in their lineup, which is nice. They also have speed. Pulling up Rodon's numbers right now, because in the past he's had trouble controlling the running game as well, despite being left-handed. This year he's allowed 10 stolen bases. He once again grades out as below average at holding runners. So it does add a little bit of upside to Kansas City as well. They don't even necessarily have to hit home runs here. If some of these guys get on base, like Merrifield, Michael Taylor, like they'll steal. So there is some added upside. There's also some cheap bats here. Again, it's a low probability spot, but I think I would get to Kansas City before I got to Tampa Bay, Philly, or Washington.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on for White Sox and Royals?
No, that's it.
We are at the halfway point of this show. 500 concurrent viewers, just 63 likes. You guys aren't doing your jobs for me. I need you to hit that thumbs up. Let's run that number north of 100. Helps us out a ton, really helps us to grow. The bigger we get, the more content we can provide. And this thing doesn't cost you anything. Just one mouse click. I think it'll be okay if we give up an individual mouse click. I also think you guys should sign up at Awesemo.com using the promo code MLB Live Before Lock. That is one gigantic word. Get 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus. That's projections, ownership, premium Slack, lineup builder, top stacks, top pitcher. I'm naming a bunch of things that you get with MLB, but you get it for every single sport. MMA, PGA, NASCAR. Obviously, there's no NASCAR. Well, maybe not obviously there's no NASCAR right now. I didn't know that NASCAR was taking a break for the Olympics, but apparently they did. Esports, NFL coming up soon. So get in the door now. Get a little bit of a discount on your first week. It's MLB Live Before Lock, 25% off your first week. All righty. 2 more to go here on this 6-game DraftKings slate. 3.9 run implied total for the Reds, 3.5 for the Cubs. Luis Castillo, Alec Mills, Castillo around 20% ownership, Mills at 2. Who are you more likely to get to?
Alec Mills. It's not that I dislike Castillo, but I just, once again, don't understand why Alec Mills isn't getting any ownership here. The wind looks like it's blowing in at Wrigley, which is obviously very good for pitching. We've seen the wind blowing out a couple of days ago. Now we've got it blowing in. But Alec Mills also has been very good this season. The issue with him from a DFS standpoint is that for a lot of the season, he wasn't really stretched out and giving you starters innings. But in his last few starts, you've gotten 92, 95, 81, and 86 pitches from Mills. For the season, he has struck out 20% of hitters, which isn't great, but it's fine for his salary. But only 0.72 home runs per 9, 3.5 xFIP. I don't really understand why Luis Pitino, for example, is getting 7 times the ownership that Alex Mills is getting.
Neither do I.
Alex Mills, rather.
Yeah, he showed up quite a bit more in my sim, so I will be getting to a little bit more Mills than the 2% that we are currently showing. Castillo, to me, is a lot like Rodon in that I think he's basically properly owned at about 20%. I'm going to shoot for that number. If I get it, great. If I get more, it's probably okay with me too. Basically, Rodon and Castillo are going to just hash out as whatever shows up. And that I'm kind of okay with. I don't have a hot take either way. There are guys getting more ownership. There are guys way less. I'm just kind of in the middle. Yeah,
that sounds about right to me too. Like Castillo's good. He's priced where he probably should be. The weather is good, but he's getting ownership as well. I just think on a lot of slates, he would be a clear top pitcher at 8,200 in this spot. But when you factor in the other pitchers on the slate, the opportunity cost goes up. The relative value of Castillo comes down. So I just think he's projected to be owned about where he should be.
Talk to me a little bit about whichever stack you want right now, Reds or Cubs.
So I think the spot's tough for both of them. But again, there's also just a lot of really good pitching on this slate. We have Cincinnati projected to be, we have them both projected to be a little bit over-owned here. Again, Washington's messing that up a little bit, but I think it's a better spot for Cincinnati. I think Mills is good, but I also expect Mills' numbers going forward to at least get a little bit worse as he is throwing more pitches and going through the lineup one more time. So I think that is a little bit in favor of Cincinnati as opposed to the Cubs going up against Castillo. You also just have pretty good power on Cincinnati, some pretty reasonable price points as well. Whereas the Cubs, we don't know their lineup yet, but Javi Baez has missed the last couple of games. If he's out, that really weakens that lineup. So I think you'll probably just end up getting a better lineup from Cincy as well. Okay. Right now, I just ran my first crunch, just taking my first peek through everything that I've got.
Cincinnati, I'm essentially neutral, but I do have about 10% 5-man stacks. I don't have really much to add there. For the Cubs, though, basically not pulling all that much ownership. And I don't hate that as well. I mean, like in a way that I do, but a 3.5 run implied total outside of that Phillies Nats game, we're talking about the lowest implied total on the slate for a team that like that's a slightly above average offense. I guess that's probably, yeah.
Right now?
The game for today, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
I got him at a weighted 105 weighted runs created plus. So
with Baez in or out?
In.
Okay.
Where are you leading me with that question?
That I don't think this iteration of the Cubs is very good.
Okay. Do you think Baez is good?
I don't think he's bad. Like
okay.
I think
he's projected for a 98 weighted runs created plus. So like he's not driving anything in this conversation outside of like being the average piece of all of it. So
yeah, that's weird then. I don't know. Like, is that like just for this season?
That's the Steamer projection.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I disagree with Steamer.
Yeah. So like when you asked, I was just like, I don't know if you mean that like negatively or positively because he's just flat on the average, you know? Like you could have had any take. Anyway, any individual bats that you want to get to from the Cubs?
Not really. Castillo's just a good pitcher. He hasn't been getting the same strikeout numbers this year as he has in the past, but that's been a trade-off where he's also not giving up nearly as much power as he used to. Only a 122 expected ISO to lefties, 104 to righties. So he's not someone that really stands out as a pitcher that I like to pick on individually. It's more so if Luis Castillo doesn't have it today, then you just obviously you're going to want full Cub stacks. But there's nobody on Chicago that individually I look at and say, yeah, I think, even if Castillo is doing well, this guy has an advantageous matchup.
Let us close out the final game before we start breaking it down individually. We'll talk about logistics of building out some lineups. We'll go through each position, touch on some guys there. But finishing it off, Giants and Dodgers, 4.1 run implied total for the Giants, 4.4 for the Dodgers. Johnny Cueto, David Price, no ownership going to Cueto, about 10% going to Price. This game starts at 3:45, so quite a bit later. I assume we don't get either of these lineups anytime soon, or at least before this show. So we're probably just waiting on White Sox and Cubs for right now. How are you managing the Cueto and David Price as pitchers for today?
So I'm interested in Price. He threw 66 pitches 2 starts ago, and then he had said he expected to throw more in his next start. That the plan is to stretch him out to be like a normal starter. He then only threw 74 pitches, so I kind of thought he was going to throw more. Only threw 74 pitches, but again, if the plan is for them to stretch him out, I think it's reasonable to think maybe you get 80 to 85 pitches from him here in San Francisco. It's not a great matchup against the Giants, but it is a really good park to pitch in. David Price, still has pretty good strikeout stuff. He's at 25% for the season. I just think he's really underpriced and not getting much ownership. And again, part of the reason the ownership is low is that the opportunity cost is really high. There's a ton of really good pitching on the slate. There's not really much offense to speak of. So it's not like there's a real need to pay down at one of your pitcher spots. But I do think that Price has actual raw point upside in addition to being a good point per dollar play.
If you're interested in any bets, I don't know what is still out there, but over 3.5 strikeouts for David Price is what I took on the breakfast menu for today. So went over on the last 2 starts, hoping that we can get there again today. Dodgers and Giants stacks today. Dodgers pulling a lot more top stack value than I was totally expecting. Giants quite a bit lower. I mean, relative to salary, I don't see them as all that different. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think it's drastically different either. I'm always going to feel a little bit better about going to the Dodgers just because of the name value of their lineup. But the Giants have been really good this year as well. Both pitchers, I think Price is better than Cueto, but I think they're kind of similar in that it wouldn't be shocking if either of them have a bad start, especially when you compare them to the other pitchers on this slate. I would say Cueto or Price is towards the top of the list of guys that you would guess don't pitch very well, or not that you would guess don't pitch well, but you wouldn't be surprised if they don't. So I don't mind going to either offense, especially with the Dodgers projected to be a little bit underowned, San Francisco projected to be a little bit overowned, but not getting crazy ownership. The White Sox are just pulling so much that you're somewhat contrarian just by not having them. So I think it's an okay spot. Again, the hitting conditions aren't great. Cueto this year has allowed a 179 expected ISO to righties, 178 to lefties. The Dodgers lineup is a bit watered down, but there are still dangerous bats in there. On the other side, Price in his limited time so far this year has held righties to a 110 expected ISO, lefties 114 since last year, since 2019, 182 expected ISO to righties, 112 to lefties. If you want to get to some Giants, it's fine, but it's not. It's still a difficult team to get to, I think, just because there's nobody that really stands out as a great option.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Your mic's messed up again.
Appreciate you. Better?
Yep.
Oh, good. I don't know what's happening. Like, I'm not unplugging anything. I just sort of have to like click on it again in a weird way. Makes no sense. Only real major ownership coming in this game is Muncy at 24%. Clearly, I'm a Max Muncy fan if you've been watching these shows, but I could see just being a little bit lighter on there and then getting what is a relatively good Dodgers stack. You are in a tough park. Johnny Cueto is solid. This is a hard slate.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of hitting. We did get an update to the top stacks tool. So now Washington's at the bottom where they belong. The Dodgers are up to the second highest top stack percentage, still going a little bit under-owned. Atlanta, New York, Mets rounding out the top 5. So yeah, it's a really difficult slate just because there is so much good pitching. I don't think you're going to feel really confident with the lineups that you build because basically if you feel confident in your lineup, it's going to be because you stacked the 30% on White Sox. And if you don't stack the 30% on White Sox and actually give yourself a chance to win tournaments, you're just not going to feel good about your lineup, which I think those slates are kind of fun, but it's really difficult to talk about because there's nothing I really like. Like there's stuff that I'm going to end up liking in the context of the slate just because the numbers say to, but when you're trying to describe why you like it, there's not a whole lot to like cling to.
Does this type of slate change your approach at all? Does it make you try to do anything differently?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, everything still just kind of comes out, I think, how it's supposed to for me.
Is there an expectation on slates like this where you just sort of eat a bunch of garbage and hope it works more so than like much. Yeah. Okay.
Like I'm just now starting to make my lineup. So I don't know for sure what I end up with, but normally how it works out for me is like I said, I'll end up underweight on the White Sox most likely. And so I'll end up getting to teams that still look okay, like the Dodgers, like the Mets, but that clearly aren't just going to make me feel that good. And then you just kind of hope that baseball happens and the White Sox somehow don't score 10 runs.
Yeah. Okay. That works for me. All right. Anything else for this game? Giants and Dodgers?
Nope.
Perfect. All right. So we've got 22 minutes to go until lock. Be sure to continue hitting that like button if you haven't done it. I would be remiss if I did not speak a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show, and that would be PrizePicks. It's going to be a little bit different. It's not a contest so much. You're just making individual picks, whether that's 2, 3, 4, or 5, basically like a giant parlay. If you correctly pick a 5-player lineup, you can get up to 10x your entry fee, whether that's NBA, MLB, WNBA, NFL esports, even. You can take advantage using the promo code Awesemo and get up to $100 instant match deposit bonus. I say this every single show. It's the same spiel, but I can't give it to you differently. Don't pass up on instant match deposit bonuses. If you've got $100 and you're looking to try to build a bankroll, this is the spot to do it. Put in 100, they match with 100. So you're starting out of the gate with 200. We've got plenty of data at the website to help back some of this stuff up. I'm going to give Adam 2 quick players for today. I want to get his thoughts. Let's start here. Over under 8 fantasy points for Pete Alonso.
Over.
Yeah, that one feels spot on to me. I got him at 8.5 in that scoring. Scoring is going to be similar to FanDuel. And by similar, I mean exactly like FanDuel. So check that one out. One more for you, Adam, if you are ready. Let's go ahead and use Justin Turner, over under 7 fantasy points.
Over 7 just seems low.
I got him at 7.2. So that is one that I would probably walk away from. But you don't just have to take the ones that I mentioned, giant list, or you can switch it up to single stats where if you want to take over under on hits and walks or runs plus RBI or just simply total bases, you can do all of those things at PrizePicks. Go check them out and use that promo code Awesemo. Get yourself that $100 instant match deposit bonus. All right. If it works for you, maybe we can give our favorite guys at each position, starting with the catchers for today's slate. Does anybody stand out to you pulling a ton of ownership. We've got a pretty obvious cash option, but who stands out to you most at catcher?
James McCann at 3,600. Interesting.
Okay. I have McCann as my number 4, but 2, 3, 4 are basically a coin flip. Yerman Mercedes, the clear chalk option as of right now at 34% ownership. I assume the preferred cash catcher for today. Also my top catcher at 24%, but to me, individually overowned. Everyone hates Chris. When are y'all doing the main slate? 5 p.m. Eastern time. Not on this show. First baseman. Who is your go-to first baseman if you have one? If you have more, feel free to let me know.
Jose Abreu.
Yeah. Abreu coming in. Tied for second for me. He is the highest owned. Gavin Sheets is the guy pulling the most ownership in my sim, so I will continue there. Second baseman. Who's your guy?
I just deleted my projections.
Seems smart.
Yeah. Probably Muncy.
I'll tell you. Okay. Max Muncy, just behind Ozzy Albies for me. Both guys pulling about 22% ownership. So keep your eyes peeled on that one. Is that legitimate? Is that really? Did the White Sox lineup come out?
Not that I've seen. Why?
Abreu not expected to be in the lineup, maybe?
Well, that would make him not a good play.
Yes, it would. Very true. Currently projected for 26% ownership, though. Also, so Abreu, Anderson, Eloy out of lineup. Well, there isn't a lineup yet, so that is an important distinction to make. It is possible that those guys aren't in the lineup, but as of right now, we don't have that kind of information. Appreciate you, though, Sanjay. But yeah, that lineup has not been. I don't know what your source is for lineups, but doesn't appear to be showing up on any of ours. If you happen to be the manager of the White Sox, please let me know so that I can trust you. But no, there is not a lineup yet, no matter how confident you are. What position are we on now? Third? Yes, third base. Who is your favorite third baseman? Wow, a very flat position for me. I don't have anybody breaking free from the back.
In terms of value, Hunter Dozier's at the top for me. I like JD Davis a ton.
So I have JD Davis at the top, tied with Jonathan VR, but LeMahieu, Riley, Turner, Flores, all super, super, super similar. Really flat position. That's really interesting. Let's move it to shortstop now. Tim Anderson is the overwhelming majority from an ownership perspective, also my top, but I'd be happy to get the Gleyber Torres or Kyle Farmer as guys that I think are under-owned.
Yeah, Tim Anderson, if he is in the lineup, clearly the top option. I'm with you on Farmer. Hitting third for 3,200 looks pretty good.
All righty. And then let's close it out. Who are some of your go-to outfielders for today?
Assuming Jimenez isn't going to be in the lineup, not him. If he is, then obviously him. But Tyler Naquin at 2,700, I think looks like a good value. In terms of just top guys, Jesse Winker looks good at 4,500. I like Aaron Judge at 4,400 on DraftKings.
Do you have any information on your stacks yet? Anything that you're seeing coming out that is ready?
No.
Okay. I didn't really think so. We got 15 minutes to go until lock. That White Sox lineup is proving to be a bit of a problem. I would like that one to come out. That Cubs as well. Nico Herner, Javi Baez, both questionable, which is a distinction you don't normally see in baseball games as much so as you do in the NBA. I do have some crunches ready. I'm probably about in the neighborhood of half the field on the White Sox. A lot of my exposure is coming in a non-stack variety. So one-offs, 2-man stacks, 3-man stacks. And then I'm pretty neutral on the Braves, who I have as my number 2. Mets and Yankees. It seems to be a New York day for me. They are looking like the two teams I'm taking the biggest stand on. Didn't really expect that coming out of the day, but that is where I am right now. Any thoughts on Mets and Yankees?
I'm with you, by the way, on your man Mercedes at catcher. I didn't have him in initially.
Okay. Do you have Collins in?
When I first ran into Savada.
Okay. Yeah, to me, he was popping up quite a bit. I want to go ahead and put in some dummy lineups because I think that would be a good idea. So for the final 14 minutes, hit us with some questions. Premium Slack, if you've got any, drop them in. YouTube chat, if you've got some questions, drop them in. I'm not entirely sure we have much else that we could really hit on for this slate. We took a pretty good lap through it. So if you have any questions, we would be happy to go ahead and answer them for you. Any weather concerns in New York? I don't think so. The Washington Philly game is the one to me that's more likely to have any problems, but I think this first one's going to be fine. I think we'll be all right for Atlanta and New York. After that, I think we don't have anything that we really need to pay attention to. Is weather playing a role in anything you're doing?
No, nothing that's worrying me.
Yeah. So best I could do on that one. All right. First and foremost, let's go ahead and just get dummy lineups uploaded. Otherwise, you're going to watch a man lose his mind on a stream at lunchtime, which is not ideal. So, all right. We've got dummies in with most likely people that are actually playing baseball today. Cincinnati stack, Dan says. I can tell you just from my own personal data, the Reds are a team that I am largely neutral to. Right now, I have 13 5-man stacks of the Reds.
Yeah, it seems right. I think we're about to get a White Sox lineup.
Okay. Any particular reason?
Just something I was looking at changed.
Okay. I was just gonna say, like, because you got a White Sox lineup, like,
nah.
There's only one way for you to get that, unless you've got a line into the clubhouse. Rock and PE has an interesting question. Does the double complete game equity for Scherzer Wheeler overcome not getting a win from one of them? Hit the like button. I agree. Hit the like button.
It's kind of, I mean, yes. Like, I don't really care about the win thing anyway, but the complete game stuff is cool.
That's also a lot of money to allocate to two pitchers. Like, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm guessing I don't have a ton of 2 plus 10K guys a pitcher today. It's certainly going to happen, but ultimately it's not like the double complete game versus the win is not something I'm paying attention to. Pedro wants to know, are the Dodgers the best leverage stack of the day?
That's the wrong slate. I think it's them or Tampa, but the Dodgers have a much better chance of success, so I would lean towards them.
Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Favorite
Alec
of the
Mills
top.
Is showing up in like none of my crunches, which makes me feel great because I really like him.
Let's see. Where do I have him? We're in the same boat here.
Like, I think he'll still show up in lineups for me once I finish, but the fact he's not getting into any of my crunches or very few of my crunches is annoying.
If we want to talk about guys that are showing up in very few of my lineups right now, Max Scherzer is one of those guys.
He's in like 31% of the ones that I'm making.
Yeah, I'm going to have to make a couple adjustments there. What favorite of the top 3 pitchers? I don't know if you've answered this since the last few ownership updates. So do you have a favorite of the 3 main guys?
With ownership the way it looks right now, I think Wheeler.
Okay. I'm having trouble thinking much of anything for these guys. The way that I'm looking at it right now, I'm not sure that there's any, like, this is going to sound really stupid. And I'm really nervous to say what's going to come out of my mouth and watch your reaction, but
I'm not really,
it's not that I don't think pitcher matters today, but I don't have such a lean on Scherzer or Cole or Wheeler where, like, I feel pretty comfortable just sticking with, like, not necessarily deviating all that much and letting the bats do the talking in lieu of just like trying to pick which ace is going to have a bad game today. Like, to me, they're all relatively properly owned, and I don't really have a take for them.
I'm there with you. Greg Allen was just scratched, by the way.
Okay. Lovely. This is going to be quite the scramble for the next 10 minutes, isn't it?
Yep. Very glad that I'm not playing 150.
need to let you know that I, on the other hand, not happy that I am playing 150. Greg Allen scratched. So, like, how does that happen?
I don't know. Maybe they traded him.
In the 10 minutes since the Yankees lineup came out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the new Yankees lineup is out. No idea who the change is. Let me try to look at this right now and figure it out. Allen out. Florial in. And still no White Sox lineup. Does that concern you?
So the projected lineup I'm seeing now doesn't have Anderson, Abreu, or Jimenez.
Same.
So I'm thinking whatever you were talking about earlier probably came from like a beat writer.
Oh, yeah. My guess as well. Come on, Yankees lineup. Refresh so I can copy you and paste you and do all that good stuff. There it is. Updated. I'm also updating that new White Sox lineup. Are you seeing anything new popping up during your crunches? Anything you didn't expect? Anything that you're heavy on?
No, still don't really know where I'm at.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. How much value do you put on historical success of Kansas City bats against Rodon?
Less than 0.
Yep. Versus 21 Rodon. Yeah, legitimately none. I don't. By the time that somebody has faced them enough, that pitcher is now 36 years old.
Yeah, especially somebody like Rodon. Like, he's been injured his whole career. He's like a totally different pitcher.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not something that I could ever truly want to pay attention to. There's just not enough sample. I highly recommend reading the book by Tango Tiger, Tom Tango, which is also not his name, actually, but that's neither here nor there. Goes into it in depth about individual pitcher matchups. Still no Sox news. Correct. Still no Sox news. Ooh. I have stacks still turned on, which is a problem. 7 minutes to go until lock. This is quite scrambly. I need to remember not to play so much on days where I do this show, which is something that I've been saying pretty frequently. But today, with day baseball, I thought it was a good idea. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, at least the White Sox game is, we can make those swaps, but
yeah, I mean, like
on that note, I'm
building lineups right now with a completely wrong White Sox lineup.
Yeah. On that note, does it factor when a guy like Votto has 5 bombs in 4 days? No. Also incredibly meaningless. I would never know what someone did at the plate within the last week and have it matter. Joey Votto could go 0 for 20 or 20 for 20, and I wouldn't know or care.
I'll know what they did because I follow the slate and know what's beating me or what's helping me. But
sure,
if I didn't follow the slate, like, I would never go back and say, "Oh man, Joey Votto's hit 5 home runs in the last 4 days."
Yeah, right. Like, it because you see the information, not that you tried to acquire it.
Right. Yeah, it just was put in front of me.
That's just what happens when you play baseball and follow baseball. But
there's the Cubs lineup. Baez is in.
Is Herner in?
No.
Great.
Duffy and Bodie.
Okay. Well, let's cancel that crunch. I'm not entirely sure this is going to work out the way that I want it to, but actually, I should be quite a bit more specific. It is absolutely not working out for me the way that I wanted to. I am not even close to proper right now.
Yeah, like, I have no idea what I'm going to end up playing, and I'm probably not going to like it.
I should not have deleted that crunch either. I shouldn't have cared at all about the Cubs lineup in the way that I'm going to have to care about the Cubs lineup. The White Sox lineup is the one that is actually meaningful for me.
Yeah, I'm really just hoping the White Sox don't show up as one of my top 3 teams because I'm only playing 3 max, and I have the complete wrong lineup in for the White Sox.
At least Baez is in.
Yeah.
Let's see what we've got. Dexter Pope says drinks on him for me down here. I will not be here. I will be out of town. Apologies. Can't get those drinks. And if it helps, that's too far for me to be driving. Oh, God. This is really... Baseball is simultaneously super easy to do and incredibly difficult.
It's like you don't run into issues with like late scratches and stuff nearly as often as NBA, but when they happen, it's such a pain to redo everything.
Yes. Like the dummy lineups that I have in right now are really problematic, I think. But they're just going to have to also exist. All right, why is that not showing? Okay, that should be fine. Honestly, White Sox, what are you doing? Is Tony just wrecked right now? Noon? I mean, safe bet that the answer is yes. Anything else, Pop? Do you have any concept of where you are with 4 minutes to go?
No, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with my Excel sheet.
Skylar says, where's the White Sox lineup? You and I and everybody else. Is Nimmo an okay one-off for a DK GPP? For the most part, every single person is a good one-off in a GPP, as long as they're not heavily owned. And it depends on the ownership for the rest of the lineup. Eric Johnson says, I have a Cubs lineup. I don't know what to do with that information. Oh, yeah. No Rizzo, because he's not playing today. So, yeah. Tall. Go with no Rizzo. Oh, man. This is fun stuff. Should have never played this slate. Can I get that email sent to DK to mass withdraw that with 3 minutes to spare? I wish I could. That's for sure. Let's see. What else we got coming in here? I'm just going to assume that Sheets will be in, but who knows? I hope that he is. Yeah. Favorite first baseman on DK. I think we hit on that a little bit earlier. I no longer know the answer. Sheets, if he's in. At least for me. You guys like Gio or Shella? Yeah. Man, baseball is so tough to like even answer these questions.
Kansas
like
a lot for me.
There's basically no such thing as a player that is a zero in a DFS lineup in baseball. Everyone is rosterable. And that is ultra confusing if you come from like basketball where, like 35 guys could be legitimate and that's it. All right. We've got 1 minute to lock. I hope you've got your lineups in. I don't really, but we'll figure that out as we go along. What else do we got? It doesn't matter. We're at the 12:04 mark with 45 seconds. I hope you guys were able to scramble enough. I am going to have some scrambling to do once this White Sox lineup comes in. You feeling confident, Adam?
No.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Way too much Kansas City. And by way too much, I mean I only played 3 lineups, so I don't really care. But yeah, if I weren't on this show, I would not have as much Kansas City.
Oh boy. Good luck, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this show. We've got the deeper dive coming up at 5 for the main slate, live before lock at 6, and then the big one, NBA draft time, 7:45 later tonight. Myself, Laffy, Ben, Greg, the boss man, Alex Baker. We've got a bunch of people popping in, but it's going to be me and Laffy to start it off. The boss man's coming in for the Pistons pick. You guys should come and watch. It's going to be a fun hang. We'll watch some NBA, but we are now officially locked. Good luck tonight, everybody. Good luck this afternoon as well. We will talk to you later.